Good. Right. Okay. We're going to go live. I'm going
Cool.
to go for a slideshow. So, first question, can you see the slideshow?
It's currently loading.
Right.
It still says loading. There we go.
Cool. Okay. So, today we're going to talk about offline marketing in some ways.
Yep.
James, because it's just me and you on this call, feel free to jump in, ask any questions. Let's try and relate it directly to your business, and let's see if we can come up with something that can help.
Cool.
So you know who I am already.
I've met you
However,
once or twice.
Simon Daly, everyone calls me Daly. I'm the founder and one of the directors here at Grow Traffic. I've been working for, that says almost 20 years in marketing. I think it is pretty much 20 years in marketing now, maybe in a couple of months. I've worked in both in-house and agency roles, and I was the brand manager of 2 tech businesses, including We Buy Any Car and HR Online, or Bright HR. And I've been the head of marketing of 3 tech businesses over that time, and I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So although I don't know that much about what I'm talking about, hopefully I should have some insights into this for you. So first thing to say, marketing is massive. This is just an example. There's always different kinds of marketing.
Yeah.
Loads of different kinds of marketing that you can think of. I'm not going to go through every single little piece of offline marketing that you could possibly do. I've just picked out a number of different areas to give you a flavor. Obviously, Grow Traffic tends to operate in the online sphere. So we do search engine optimization, which means that we try to help websites to grow their traffic in Google in order to get more customers in the long run. But we do other things like social media marketing, email marketing, pay-per-click marketing, all those different types of things that you can do online from almost from your bedroom or from your living room, like I'm in now. And I think often, especially for small businesses starting out or, working on their own marketing, digital marketing is an obvious place to go because it's something that you can do and make happen straight away. Often businesses aren't very strategic about how they do it, but they certainly crack on and often have a good go at making things work. People can be scared by offline marketing because they can perceive it as being have additional cost associated with it, or that they find the results hard to understand or interpret. So ignoring kind of digital marketing, all the stuff that we've just talked about, let's start thinking about the offline stuff. But before we do that, let's just have a quick talk about you and your customers. So this is the marketing mix, 7 Ps of the marketing mix. This is all about understanding your business, how it aligns to your customers, and what that means in terms of how you create products, how you create services, how you package those, how you present them. So here's the definition. It's a tool used by marketers just to understand and help us kind of understand what the mix of the different combined kind of pieces of elements of marketing that we need to use in order to properly target customers. And the thing to bear in mind with the marketing mix is most of it can be controlled by a business. So it's things that you can directly influence. It's important to understand this, especially for offline, because it's important to understand this for all marketing, because you need to work out where you're going to actually put yourself, which channels you're going to start to adopt in order to target your customers. So just thinking about all the different types of like the 7Ps: people, place, the kind of physical environments, promotion, price, process, product, all these things we kind of go through, think about, always starting with people though, the faces of your business, but also your customers as well. Thinking about how they portray the business, thinking about how your customer engages with the business, what products they want, what they're looking for. And all this is really important to understand, because ultimately it's going to tell us where your customer's going to be. And that's going to be important to think about offline marketing. So think about offline marketing. Like I said, we talked about online marketing, digital marketing. Let's think about offline marketing. So really simple. What's good about offline marketing? One of the key things is that not everyone's online. I know that like 90%, there's 90% or 95%, I think it is now, of people have a smartphone and can access the internet via their phone, for example. However, it's still a big proportion of the population that don't regularly go online, don't use the internet, and you could potentially be missing out on quite a big chunk of your potential audience if you don't go online, if you don't go if you don't go offline, don't use offline channels. And it really depends on the types of businesses that you regularly target as well. So I know for you, for example, you're a training company, health and safety training company.
Yeah.
And I suppose some of the industries that you may target might be maybe more industrial. There may be more hazards in those environments, which may mean that they are less they're more kind of old-fashioned in some ways, they're more conservative in some ways, then perhaps are less likely to be online or spend such a significant portion of their time online. And as such, they may be the types of people that you want to target with a bit of an offline strategy. But the other things is that you get to make face-to-face connections, and that's really important. Often for service businesses, it's vital to make those kind of face-to-face connections, build a really good rapport with people, which only really happens offline. You can start to online, you can start to kind of create content that explains who you are, what you're all about. It can get across your tone of voice. You can show pictures about yourself, talk about your history. But even then, for most services businesses, somebody is going to pick up a phone and speak to somebody over the phone or have a meeting in person.
Yeah.
And one of the things about marketing is that, or one of the things that people perhaps don't think about with marketing, is that every different touch point a business has with a potential customer is a type of marketing. So every time you get on a phone with a customer or a potential customer, you are having a marketing interaction. You're portraying the brand in some way. You're communicating your values. You're communicating the services that you offer. It's a marketing interaction at all times. And so, even just picking up the phone to somebody is offline marketing in its own rights. Offline marketing is also great for building brand awareness and trust. And it because it kind of it substantiates the business in the physical world in a way that online kind of digital marketing perhaps doesn't. It also means that you can build business relationships, and I think that lots of businesses see this when they go networking, which is again a form of marketing, and they're able to relate to other people that are in that group, perhaps start doing business with people that they would never have thought about as being their potential customers, or they are then referred on via them. You can also, you also build local relationships. Often when you start to kind of do offline marketing. So because offline marketing is very physical, it tends to be geographically not widespread in the way that the distribution happens by and large. And you generally get the best leads from offline marketing, and they generally come in the form of referrals. I don't know about you, James, but when we get inquiries from the website, we love getting inquiries from the website. You know, that's what we're here to do every day of the week. We help businesses to generate inquiries from the website, from their websites. But when we get them, we know that they convert at a lower rate, and they often are less valuable to us than the referral business. And that's because people really are going off other people that they trust, their advice, and that's, you know, it's a huge thing. So that's a huge benefit of offline marketing. You'll notice this little wheel because it's the same as the one before. I've just changed the words.
Yeah.
So but let's think about this is just some examples of offline marketing. So think events. If we look at events first, think about conferences, seminars, you know, networking, all good examples of events that you're going to market your products and services at. Point of sale. So this is mainly kind of relates to kind of merchandising. So you might think of people that sell things in a shop, where they have banners, they might have shop fittings, they might have merch. But there's you know, there are lots of ways that also relates to B2B businesses as well. You can think of examples where you might leave even something like where you work with another business and you're leaving maybe a brochure in that of the business you work with, so that they can communicate with their customers about the service that they're going to get you to provide. Might be considered a point of a sale kind of offering there. Sponsorships. Sponsorships range from everything, actually, you know, supporting, but basically what you're doing there is you're supporting another business in order to use the association with their customers or potential customers, or, you know, their reach in general. Advertising, you know, you're going to think about billboards, you're going to think about flyers, you might think about posters that are put on the side of hoardings up and down the country. You might think of radio, TV, all different kinds of signs, leaflets. You know, these all kind of play into that kind of advertising sphere. Magazines, for example, industry magazines can be particularly beneficial in some capacity. Packaging, so the actual design of the products themselves, or the services that you have, you know, how you package those up, how you use those to communicate with the customer. It's more important perhaps for product businesses, but there is ways that it can relate to services. But
we do have some products.
There you go. Actually, you gave out a little like, did it have plasters in it, like a little plastic kind of case with plasters in it?
Yeah.
Am I right? Am I remembering this right?
That was us.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. So I was just rummaging through a little medical kind of drawer, and I picked that up, and I've forgotten about that, but it's really handy, and it made me think about you guys. So well, it did make me think about you guys. Then I just questioned it a second ago, but it's a good example of things that you can do. Like you say, you've got your first aid kit there that you can brand up, you can put your messages on.
Frozen. frozen. Not me.
Potential employees. I've just got
Ooh, you've gone.
hello again.
Hello.
So I have no idea what happened there.
I don't know. You just frozen for about 30 seconds and then vanished.
Yeah, it just completely dropped out. So
Looks like it's still recording, which is good.
yeah, it's still recording. So I'm just going to share my screen again. We'll go back to send slideshow. All right, okay, let's get rid of that. So, we've not had a problem with our internet for quite a while now.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there. We got new fiber put in, and everything seems to be going quite quickly, but it's not great today. Yeah, so I was talking about branding, 360 branding. That's everything from packaging to culture, what products you produce, and all the rest of it. Thinking about events. So you and I attend a few of the same networking events together, which is good. But you can think about all these other different types of events that you might want to attend. And you might think about these in terms of networking events, seminars, exhibitions, conferences. There are a wide range of different events that you could potentially attend in order to get the message of your business out there. So I'm actually working with somebody at the moment to help them develop a series of training events that they're going to run frequently. And it didn't work for them, and one of the reasons was that they found that they were only getting people that they already knew coming to their events. So it was always the same handful of people. So what we've done is changed up how they're doing it, and we've gone out to related businesses that aren't directly competitive with them, and said, right, if we put on a training event and we're going to have the first 10-minute speaking slot, will you come and do a second 10-minute speaking slot, third 10-minute, and get a handful of businesses in there that are giving a bit of a presentation. And then each of those businesses will then invite their customers, their prospective customers, put it on their socials, all the rest of it. And then you've got a physical event where you're all kind of cross-pollinating off the back of each other's audience and customers in a way that is mutually beneficial and not competitive. But likewise, one of the things that we found particularly beneficial is going out to niche conferences and seminars. So thinking about industry niches, and because when you go to like a general business fair, in our game, for example, and I'm sure it's the same in yours, you'll go in there and there'll be a handful of other businesses that are doing what you do. And you're communicating a very generic message because you're trying to communicate to everybody that's walking through the door. But if, for example, if you were to go to I don't know if this is a good example or not, but if you were to go to, say, a construction conference, a conference about construction, you might be the only, health and safety training provider there. And you can tailor your message and make it really specific to the construction industry. You can look at the packages that you're going to create. You can create new little packages to tell them about make it look really specific to them. And then you could also do a speaking slot. You could position yourself as an authority, and it just gives you the chance to meet people, to influence people. You might meet industry influencers, get those kind of expert face-to-faces that you wouldn't do in other kind of environments. You're going to learn also while you're there. So if you've got a room full of other exhibitors, you're going to figure out what's going on in their industry, perhaps what's going on in your industry that you're not 100% aware of. So there are a lot of kind of benefits of doing that, and we've found as well that you don't always have to exhibit at these things. Just make sure that you attend if there's and get your business cards out there and make sure you're talking to people. Be able to demonstrate your products or your services in some way. And one of the things that I always love when we go networking together, you always show up in your bright green kind of overalls that makes you look like a paramedic almost. And I think that's a really clever piece of kind of branding and promotion there, that's a really effective and good example of offline marketing in some ways, because you're using that to communicate what you do in a really visual way.
People very rarely ask me what I do for a living.
No, I can
Very
imagine.
rare.
It's written all over you. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, and it just gives you that chance to really reach kind of different customers, people that you wouldn't be able to get in front of normally, and perhaps people that you wouldn't think of getting in touch with, getting in front of normally, so you can then open those additional opportunities. I've had some great successes, I must say, with events over the years. Just going back to point of sale. So I'm going to skip through this quite quickly because I know it's not really massively relevant to yourself, but it's just a way of catching the customer's eye really quickly. It's a way to kind of really supplement packaging. So if you're a product supplier and you've got a really nicely made up package, if you have a bit of point of sale branding further around in a shop, then somebody's going to see that, recognize that, and as they're then walking a bit further along and they see your package, it will reinforce the branding of the two things. You get join up, and then they're more likely to buy off the back of that. It'll increase your kind of your buy rates. You've got to strategically be able to locate your products in certain situations. So you can think about merchandising stands that they often have at the end of gondolas in shops and things like that. You are helping your retailer. Anything that you can do to help a retailer, they will give you that benefit back, because they are looking for ways to increase sales. It often is more cost effective in the long run, because you don't have stock sitting on shelves. You've got that rapid kind of movement, and also it enables you to target impact buyers. So with things like discounts, with things like 2-for-1 deals and things like that, and also core messages. You can get core messages out there. Sponsorships. So I've got I know I've got a football team here, but let's think about sponsorships more broadly. You can think about sponsorships. Yeah, you can think about Burnley Football Club up the road, who have LED lighted kind of advertising boards throughout the ground and in front. That's one example of sponsorship. I think they charge a minimum of £5,000 a year to get started with their sponsorship packages. But you can also think about things like sponsoring an event, for example. Lots of publications out there put on frequent events, and they tend to be much more niche. So you might be able to sponsor them. You might be able to sponsor them for a few £100. There is things like local community events. Can you, is there going to be a charity raffle, for example, and could you sponsor some prizes, or could you sponsor the event in general? Because you know that probably the right kind of, or possibly the right kind of people are going to be in the audience, or a percentage of them will be the right kind of target audience for you, or target market. With sponsorships, you also get to build kind of business relationships, and that's because you often find that it's B2B, or there's other sponsors in the room that are also sponsoring that event, so you get to mingle with other sponsors and talk to them, but also the people that you're sponsoring. If you sponsor a business once, they tend to want to help you out. They tend to want to do you more favors, because potentially in the future you'll come back and sponsor them again. Helps you build brand awareness, and this is really clear, because you're going to get to use the people or the business that you're sponsoring. You're going to get to benefit from their reach, from their audience. You get brand association as well, which is when a business has a lot of kind of brand equity. The business that's being sponsored, so say like a football team, they have a lot of goodwill towards them, and a lot of equity in their brand. And because you are associated with it, the people that hold that brand in higher regards, then their perception of your brand becomes lifted as well, which in turn means you get a better kind of conversion rate for when people actually want to buy from you. And ultimately, hopefully, you're going to generate leads from this. That's one of the big things. And often, if you do look at a sponsorship package with a provider, if you kind of have a conversation with them at the beginning and say, look, I need this to work for me. Part of my KPIs for this, not just brand awareness, this is going to be about generating leads. And they will then, if you have that conversation with the commercial director of a business that has sponsorship opportunities, they will often, put you in touch with the right people, because they want to be able to demonstrate that it has generated leads for you. And you can hit niche markets. If you're sponsoring an event, say it's a seminar series or a conference, then often the people in that room will just be the right, they'll just be a specific industry or group of people. Advertising. So advertising, we all think about billboards, massive billboards, but that's a relatively small part of marketing. You can tend to be able to get a billboard on the side of a road for about £1,000 for 2 weeks. You might also think about buses, sides of buses. I always like the double-decker buses, what they call the T advertising on the side of them, where it kind of goes across the top and then down where the steps are inside, forms a T. One of the things that I've been particularly successful with in the past is wrapping taxis, getting a fleet of taxis wrapped. It's there's an expense to it, but one of the things that you tend to find with taxis, if you wrap a few of them, then you can guarantee that one of them will still be wrapped 2 or 3 years after the period that your contract has already expired. And so whilst you might only pay for a year, you get the added benefit that nobody else has claimed that wrapping as well. It can often be more effective for small businesses, especially if it's targeting a niche, especially if it's the kind of service that people need, where there's a direct response for the ad. That can often be more cost effective than some of the more long-term strategies that you have to implement now online, such as content marketing or SEO, which really are kind of medium-term strategies that have long-term benefits. So you can also find ways to get in front of people in their homes, which you can do online, but it's a really great way. You can get in there, you can get in front of them on the TV. You can think about radio, magazines, all that type of thing. I've done a number of radio campaigns over the years to, differing levels of success. I must be honest. I do think that it's really important when you start thinking about spending on advertising that you're spending from a position of profit and you're not trying to, or this is my theory about advertising anyway, that you don't take the risk of, right, I'm gonna borrow this much money and just plow it all into advertising, because my model says that if I spend this, I will get this many conversions, which will result in this much profit. I can reinvest that back. What you tend to find is you're always chasing your tail, and the model never quite works the way you expect it to. So you're always having to readjust the model. So it's always best to spend profit on advertising rather than spending money that you've not got or that you need for cash flow. Packaging. So like you just showed us, James, in terms of the packaging that you've got, that not only does that have a benefit from a marketing perspective, it protects the product, so that was a hard, a kind of hard packaging, which I can't think, a case, that's the word I was looking for, a kind of hard case that will protect your product. It can decrease costs overall because you're putting everything in one place. You're not having to go to multiple different areas of your warehouse or your shop in order to pull a bundle together. You've actually packaged it in one place. It can prevent things getting damaged, again, decreasing your overall costs. Like we talked before when we were talking about point of sale stuff, it's a way of attracting customers. You're making something just look that bit more appealing than perhaps what it is if it was just a bunch of products laid out next to each other. You can provide core information on there, so you can provide information like sales messaging, not just about the product that they're buying, not just about you as a business, not just about your brand, which we'll come on to in brand, reinforcing the brand and brand awareness, but also about other products that you've got. Can use it to cross sell to other products and make it work harder for you. Ultimately, it's all about increasing sales. It's about improving the number of sales that you can get from that product. PR. Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in PR for many years now, and I think it's a really important part for lots of businesses' strategies, especially those businesses that want to position themselves as industry experts. There is a number of things that it does. It lets you become an authority. It helps you increase awareness. I'm conscious that I've spoken about awareness quite a few times, and there's a number of different types of awareness that a brand might want to achieve. For example, you might want to achieve top of mind awareness, where if somebody says health and safety, you're the first, the first business that comes up.
Yeah.
Or if you mention the brand, somebody says, "Oh yeah, I remember them guys. I remember, they do this, this, and this." Or if you want to just dominate the industry, and you want to, you put so much branding out that you're able to really create a kind of dominant position for yourself. And there's ways to measure this, and it is important when thinking about offline marketing that you measure things. You always need to have an idea of return on investment, but things like awareness are important measurements as well. They should be kind of KPIs that need to be looking at, not just the actual sales that come off the back of them straight away. You get to reach a wide range of audiences with PR. It should generate leads. If it's done correctly, it should generate leads, or it should improve the conversion rates that you're experiencing already. So it's always worth creating a model and saying, right, I am getting these many inquiries at the moment. I think if I do this much PR, this will increase my number of leads by X, or it will increase my overall conversion rate by X. And then say to yourself, well, one is my upper limit, one is my lower limit. Let's test the two models together and see which one works best, or see if we can validate or disprove that hypothesis. And then it gives you the opportunity to influence industry debate. And I've been really successful with this over the years. I have had PR campaigns where I've produced like a white paper, done a bit of research, maybe gone out to 1,000 or 3,000 or 10,000 customers, potential customers, industry kind of people, asked them a series of questions, and then off the back of that, created a bit of a research paper, a bit of content that has a really specific angle to it. And this has become, this is like the fulcrum, the central piece to a PR campaign. And off the back of that, you're able to generate press releases every week where you're putting out something, you're influencing the debate, and then you get other people in the industry starting to talk about what you're talking about. They start to talk about the research that you've done as being a legitimate piece of almost academic research, and that something that should be taken notice of. Means that you get loads of clicks back to your website, you get increased brand awareness. Sometimes even your competitors, by doing that, are helping you grow your brand awareness. And ultimately, if you do this well, you can also influence policy making. So a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago now, I produced a market research paper in the private rental sector, and we did loads of PR around it. And it eventually led to the managing director of that business going before the House of Commons, one of the House of Commons committees, and commenting on a green paper that they were working up. So, you know, actually creating content that not only influences industry debate, that influences the legislative program. And one of the benefits of that is, if you think about the SWOT analysis that you potentially, you know, most people do in businesses, some of those external threats that you have often come from legislation that governments are putting through. And so by doing this type of thing, you can start to head some of that off at the pass and really influence those decisions before they get onto the legislative agenda in such a way that you can't, that they're imposed upon you. So that's PR. Branding in general. So, you know, branding's a facet of marketing, and it is about customer recognition. You know, we talked about awareness. There's loads of different types of awareness that you can consider, but you know, does the customer recognize you? How loyal are they to you? You know, how do they love your brand in such a way that they'll come back to you time and time again? How can you create a brand that has multiple layers to it? Some of that will be online, but a lot of it is actually offline. Like you yourself, James, you know, walking around in your green paramedic kind of suit, that's part of the brand. You know, if you grew your business, I assume that everybody that came on and did that would be wearing that same thing, and we'd know that
Very
was
much so.
Yeah. There's binary plus coming into the room, and you'd look almost like a green army if it was all of you turning up in one go, but it'd be great. And people recognize these things, and not only do your customers recognize it, but you also get things like staff retention benefits. So employee churn is reduced when you have a really strong brand, because people, staff want to work for you. So you have fewer people kind of going other places elsewhere, and you also get lower wage bills because people are prepared to work for you for less than they would they'd want to work for another brand that they've never heard of or that they're not sure of. So branding can have multiple benefits. It's how you consistently talk to your customers. So not only in terms of the stuff that you put out on social media, but when you're physically talking to them, what words do you use? What is your tone of voice? How do you use language in order to make them understand what the brand's all about? Even further than that, some really kind of slick operations will go further and say, like, think about the gestures that you use. These are the gestures that our brand uses.
Like pointing at Disneyland.
Yeah. Like, that kind of the pointing. Brand gestures is something that many businesses consider. Things like, but also like you might, if you worked in a shop, you might be reminded that you should please always fold your hands in front of you. For example, that is part of our training for our staff because it helps this. But if everybody does it, then it starts to become part of the brand's culture to do that. There's a rationale behind it, and it feeds into the way that you interact with the people that you work with, and the way you respect maybe the customers, or the way you interact with them. And ultimately, it's all about once you get that flow, that consistency going through every element of your marketing output, through every touch point a customer has with the business, then you get the consistency that leads to increased ROI, because people understand what they're getting, and they ultimately come back and buy more. And finally, really, it's just about constantly reviewing things. You're going to focus on understanding your customers first and foremost, because that informs every decision that you're going to make. And then you've got to check that you've got the right channels. It's no good having a radio campaign. I'm going to use a real life example here. So it's no good having a radio campaign that's targeting accountants with a piece of HR software when there is only a very small percentage of accountants listening to that radio station at any one time. You'd be much better perhaps doing something like going to an accountant's conference, for example, or an accountant's training seminar, and doing some joined up work with another business like that. So also, don't just concentrate on return on investment. It's important. It's an important metric in marketing, but I think since the advent of the digital age, we've become much more focused on direct return on investment through marketing. And when I first started out in marketing, we had our percentages, we understood the way that things would work, but there was always an element of, we just have to put this out there, and we just have to keep putting marketing out there, because it's something that can't be properly measured. It's very difficult to have a real understanding of how many people are aware of your brand, what impact that has on their buying decisions. There are surveys that you can do, you can reach out, you can do focus groups to try and understand these things. But ultimately, if you understand your customers, if you've got a good understanding of them, and you're consistently putting marketing out in the right places that targets them with a message, and you're tweaking and reviewing it all the time, ultimately you're going to start to impact and change their buying behavior, which is what marketing aims to do. Measure brand awareness if you can, and we've kind of talked about this, but there's all kinds of different ways to measure brand awareness. Ultimately, a really easy one is just to go to your existing customers and drop them a quick free survey somewhere, like a Survey Monkey or something like that, saying things like, what does my brand stand for? What when you think about my brand, what do you think of? And just validate that the things that you think about your business are what your customers think, and that will then give you a sense of brand awareness. Think, what does my business do? And that will give you an indication if your brand's working, if the marketing that you're putting out there is working. And those types of questions are especially important when you're doing offline marketing, and that might be brand advertising, where you're not even putting a buying message onto an ad. You can think about this in terms of, I always think about the Coca-Cola adverts at Christmas, where it's just the Coca-Cola van driving through the snow, and they never say go out and buy a bottle of Coke or anything. They're just reinforcing that Coca-Cola is the brand and that it exists. And after you've reviewed things, constantly review them, but just make changes quickly. Try not to tie yourself into long contracts with anything, because something might not work and you will need to change it. And if you're not seeing the results that you expect to see from a piece of copy or a bit of artwork, just change it. Just do something different and see whether it works. So that's my kind of overview, I think. Yeah. If you've got any questions, so that's kind of my overview of a broad brush approach to offline marketing. There are so many different types of offline marketing that you could do. Those are just some of the things that I would suggest, some of the things that you might want to consider while you're doing it. What is there anything that you'd like to ask? Is there anything that you've been thinking about?
That was really good at planting some seeds,
Good.
which I think was probably its intention.
Yeah.
The bit that I found really interesting was going to the trade specific shows and seminars, which I hadn't even considered before, because actually speaking to people face to face tends to get me my best returns.
Yeah.
Better than the internet or anything else. Yeah, Google every now and again. Like, I woke up this morning to a booking. It's just somebody who'd Googled and found a first aid course.
Yeah.
But they tend to be like a few now and again booking 1 day courses, whereas if you actually end up talking to somebody, it can be, all right, you've got 40 staff that need training. So that's where that conversation's a very different one. So yeah, the industry specific places would be a really good idea that I hadn't even began to think about.
Yeah, and there are lots of if you go on kind of Eventbrite, Meetup, all those types of places, you'll start to be able to find those little niche events, and there might only be 20 to 50 people there.
Yeah.
Some of them you'll go and there'll be hundreds or thousands of people there at those different events. But I think sometimes those little events where there's 20 or 30 people there are often better events, because you get that one-on-one time. You're the only person in the room with that specialism. You get to really position yourself as an expert. And then you build up, don't you? You build up your kind of, I remember going to Bob that you presented at it, and you brought out the it was like a body that you would and I could see how it's a really visual aid. It's a great visual aid to really demonstrate what you do. So I thought, getting up on stage even and demonstrating that at a little seminar, a little conference, a little training event for a specific niche would be really, really good, I think. And really, and so what's your kind of normal customer, would you say? What do they look like? Who are you looking to target then?
It can be absolutely anybody, to be honest. That's part of it's a bit like when I had a conversation with Rachel the other day. We've both got the same kind of issue, that anybody and everybody kind of can and needs to use our service. So it's really hard to narrow it down.
Yeah, which is not a good place for a business to be when from a marketing perspective,
Yeah.
because it just means that the message has to be very generic, and
Yeah.
it ends up being wishy-washy and a bit, it's trying to do a bit for everyone.
Yeah, so I am doing some specific industry targeting at the moment. At the
Oh,
moment,
great.
one of the things I'm targeting is the security industry, because
Right.
of the changes to the requirements for people who have their SIA badge, their bouncers.
Right.
Recently, it's been introduced that they have to have a first aid certificate in order to renew their license. So
Right.
that's one area that I'm trying to target at the moment. Like I did a podcast on it, and I put a couple of LinkedIn articles out of it. I need to find an offline way of getting in contact with that industry and reminding them that they need to do
Yeah,
it.
one of the things that I would say about that industry as well, I know a couple of people that are kind of in that industry really, and it is actually it's a very offline industry.
Yeah.
It's just people who know people, and
Yeah.
who kind of often they recruit their new bouncers on the door,
Yeah.
word of mouth on the door, and so there's the chap at the Shout networking meeting every other Friday in Burnley, who
Yeah.
is the
Yeah. No,
key
I've
holder
I've
for.
spoken to him about it and told him what levels of training and things are
Yeah,
required for his licenses and stuff. So we started that conversation.
that's brilliant. But he will then, I'd assume, know a lot of other people that
Yeah.
that he can refer you on to. I can't imagine that there'll be a I don't know, a bounce. Oh, there might be like a Bouncers Today magazine or something. Who
I don't
knows?
know.
But then I suppose the other way of going about it might be to approach pub chains and
Yeah.
say, send even just like a physical letter out to pub chains saying, did you know, blah blah blah, your bouncers, who is probably a private company that come to you once or twice a week. They need to be have this qualification in order to have a license.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that they're proving to you that they do. I'll just tell you one other thing. So I love this example of kind of offline marketing that worked really well for this guy. So he wanted to target IT directors.
Yeah.
And what he did was he went on eBay and he bought old computers, like Ataris and Commodores and stuff, with a box full of games. And he walked into the reception of these big kind of multinational companies, or national companies, whatever, and he said, can I speak to this person? I've got this package for them. And told them what it was. It's an Atari, blah blah blah. And the message went up, and he said, like, 9 out of 10 times the person came down.
Yeah.
Because he was like giving them an old computer,
Yeah.
and they're all
Something
kind
cool.
of, something like nerdy and something that they might be interested in, a bit kind of grillish, and it just gave them that opportunity to start a conversation in a different way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's there's lots of different kinds of tactics that you might want to use from a marketing perspective. And I mean, the other thing is whether it's kind of partnership marketing as well. Can you team up with another business that's related to you, and can you package up their services with yours? Can they package up their services with yours as well? And can you sell them kind of separately or refer amongst each other?
Yeah.
And work out. I'm trying to think of the types of organizations that. Do you know what? A long time ago, when I worked for, it was it's a £1 billion business. They have a number of divisions, all different branding. You wouldn't necessarily know that they're all the same business, really. But they had HR, a big HR kind of company, software company, I think they did health and safety as well, actually, EAP, all these types of elements. And they ran training courses I think it was every week or something at different venues. So they just hired out like a small room in the back of a hotel.
Yeah.
And they took like 5 people to that meeting, and they all pitched it as if they were from different businesses, because they were from separate divisions, all giving a bit of additional advice, and it worked. That worked really well for them. So there are lots of options. There are lots of different options. It's just making sure that you choose the right one, find the right one, and find out where your customers are, which give them what they want. Which is all marketing, really. It's all the same thing.
It's a bit like wading through custard sometimes when you don't really know what you're doing with marketing.
The thing about marketing, it can be like wading through custard even when you've got a vague idea what you're doing with marketing, because it's all about producing a hypothesis, testing it, proving or disproving, and then improving. And often it doesn't work the way you think it would. And so you then go back to the drawing board and have to come up with something different, or you have to keep doing that thing because it works a bit, and then find something else that you need to do because it just, it won't give you the reach or the audience size that you need.
Yeah.
Without bankrupting you.
Yeah, I'd rather not spend money I haven't got.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that.
No.
Cool. Okay, well, you know where I am. If you do want to get in touch, and if you've got any more questions. But if not, for now, good to speak to you, and I'll see you again very soon.
Yep, I'll see you soon. Thanks
Thanks
very much, Dally.
Cheers. No worries.
See you later.
Bye.